Hello pianist, I'm excited to teach you how to play Beethoven's German dance in D major. This is the fifth dance from his Without Opus 42 6 German dances that he published in 1796 when he was 26 years old. It's an excellent first Beethoven piece for you, along with some of his simpler sonatinas as well. A German dance is a quick piece, as you heard, in this 3/4 time signature. It was designed to be danced by couples and was a precursor to the waltz that came later. This is a public domain piece that you can find online, but you can also learn it along with me from Alfred's Group Piano for Adults Book 1 on page 129. Today I'm going to talk you through the process, so stay tuned as we go through how to process all of these groups of notes as scales and patterns. It looks kind of busy on the page, but if you pay attention to the patterns, it makes it much easier to play. I'm also going to do some poor demos and good demos so you can hear what it sounds like if you play that left hand equally loud with the right hand. And I'll show you a cool trick how to do a silent play of the left hand to get that right hand melody to sing out. Also, you'll hear a lot of dynamic nuances that I'll add just to make it exciting and dramatic like Beethoven style. All right, we're going to learn it along with me on the Bronson Musical Learning Pyramid. So let's look at the bottom layer at the rhythms and the time signature. We're in 3/4 for this dance. Something to be careful of is there's a pickup feel where I start on an incomplete measure. So the very first beat is actually beat 3, should be light and airy. And then there's these patterns of eighth notes after it. So I'm going to do a little bit of counting that you can tap along with me. Be careful at the half notes and quarter notes to not rush through them. Still feel your eighth notes. So I'm going to play measures 1 through 8. I want you just to practice tapping and even counting with me. Let's go about 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So be careful at those transitions at measure 8 and then 8 into 9 that you feel that 1, 2, 3, 1. It's a little bit of a rest, which will be essential for you to move your hands as we get to that. I would suggest that you start quite slow, but perhaps even move it up to a performance tempo of a BPM of 176, maybe even 192. But avoid going too fast. You're going to lose some of those dynamic nuances that we'll talk about today. All right, pianists, let's go up to our next level of our pyramid for note reading and the fingering category. I always like to start with my easiest part first. So I'm going to begin with my left hand, and I need to think in my key signature to know where to place this left hand. So 2 sharps, you look at the sharp to the right, and that is a C sharp, up a half step. I'm in D major. That's confirmed because my left hand has lots of Ds, the right hand uses a scale. So if you've been practicing your D scales, it's going to make it much easier to play this piece. You can even pause there, go to that video, and learn your D major fingering. We also need to get into those landmark notes. So in the left hand, I would look at probably actually where the thumb is placed on a D3, a skip below landmark F, or you can take a step above that C3. So put your thumb there, and then you can count down. There's an interval of an octave. In between, it's filled in with a fifth. This is a super common pattern that we even use for improv still today. Look through. Thankfully, Beethoven has repeated that same interval for 4 measures, and then it comes back at measure 6 and also at 8. So a little caution on these octaves. You can get really tired if you just continue to hold tension in your hand. So as you play these octaves, just let the arm weight relax your hand down. So I'm not holding tension throughout. Once the hammers strike, the job is done on the piano. And the weight of your hand, you can just rest there. So we're going to go through this left hand. And to get these notes to re-speak, I've shown some commas on the score. So by beat 3, I want you to lift that left hand so it can go up and then replay. So let's try that in your left hand. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, lift. 1, 2, lift. 1, 2, lift. 1, 2, lift. Fingering change, measure 5. The thumb goes to a C sharp, black key, go in towards the fallboard. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, into the keys. 2, 3. 1, 2, move. Here it goes to like a dominant harmony. I'm on an A2 and an A3. That's the same interval for 4 measures again. He's very repetitive. Measure 13 goes to an A7, thumb goes to a G. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Another black note with your thumb, go in towards the fallboard. So measure 15 is going to take a little bit of extra practice. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. To get that left hand to remember to lift in between on those and beats. So that's the left hand. We'll come back to that with some voicing, but you can practice it by itself. All right, next pianist, let's go into the right hand. It looks pretty busy on the page, but stay with me as I talk you through the patterns. I see a lot of seconds, so what I've labeled on the score to help you is the intervals in between. So we're gonna start with that right hand on an A4 with the thumb. If you're following Alfred's group piano, it has excellent fingering. Follow it along. Remember, black keys go in towards the fallboard, never reaching for those keys. So I'm gonna play through this. I'm gonna label those intervals. You can watch it on the score so you can learn it as well. So it starts in A4, goes up a fourth, down a fourth, steps, down a fourth, steps, down a third, careful. And then there's a fourth down, down a second, repeats, third, repeats, steps, third, repeats. So notice that his patterns are changing every phrase. So the first phrase was a series of fourths and thirds and scales. The second phrase was a sequence starting on G. It just feels like it's just going down by steps, and it's great because you don't have to watch your hand. You can just feel that as it moves down, okay? And then the right hand at pick up into measure 9 again starts on an A4, jumps up a fifth, goes up seconds, down, and then measure 11 to 12 is exactly like 9 and 10. Thank you, Beethoven. Repeats that. A little bit different sequence. Measure 13 goes up by steps, back down, up by steps, back down. Careful here. So pay attention to where the patterns change because your brain wants to go on autopilot. So 13 to 14, it has 3 steps up, 1 step up, back down. So measure 15 will be a measure to isolate because of that left hand, repeated chords, and that interval difference in the right hand. All right, so let's also talk through how to start to get this hands together. Since it is kind of a busy piece, I would suggest you play that right hand and just do some left hand tapping just on your lap or the fallboard on your pianos. Remember, that's going to lift on beat 3. So I'm going to think 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, lift and play, lift and play, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, lift, 2, lift, and 1, 2. You get the idea. So tap that left hand. Also at measure 15, that'll be very helpful to play and tap. So you can time those left hand lifts with that right hand and beat on beats 1, 2, and 3. All right, pianists, let's keep moving up and making this more stylistic. We're going to go into the articulation category of our musical learning pyramid. So we've already been talking about that left hand detached to get it to replay. That's all you have to take care of with the left hand. A lot of the detail comes from the right hand. So I'd practice some right hand by itself. Might even circle or highlight those staccatos so it starts light and up, kind of like an up bow for a string player. And then it's smooth. You could draw on a comma where we lift. And then I have a 2-note slur, which would be a down, up, and up. And if you're watching my hand, you notice I'm doing some wrist circles, which I've demonstrated in another video. Let me just talk through that briefly, but you can reference that other video. So the idea is that when notes are going away from my body, it's an under motion as they go back towards my body. In over motion, staccatos would be up and light, and you're gonna see some wrist circles on that sequence. So watch my hand carefully and I'll talk you through that. So I go up, over, under, over, lift, down, up, under, over, off, under, over, off, under, over, off. So if you slow down and apply that technique, it's going to make it really possible to play it with ease. Might feel harder to add it at first, but you'll be able to play really light and be able to play flashy like this Beethoven piece. All right, we're going to move up into the dynamics category of our musical learning pyramid. I'm going to start by playing a chord demo. I'm going to play my left hand equally loud to the right hand. I'm going to ignore any kind of micro dynamics that I'll talk you through. So listen to this, and then I'll follow it up with teaching you through those steps to make it beautiful. Okay, now listen how it sounds different. So I was playing that right hand melody, which is the part you would sing along with, much louder than my left hand. That's kind of tricky because I have 3 notes in my left hand. I have singular notes in the right hand. There's where you can do that silent play technique. You could even just do it up here, which you had done similar in your tapping. Then put it on the keys and see if you can just tap to lift, play that right. And you're gonna have to slow it down to get this to not speak and this one to speak nice and rich. And I even made it speak a little bit, but a little bit of sound is okay. And you go back in and play it light. Go slow enough so you can hear that kind of balance. That's the first step to dynamics, to get that balance of melody louder than the left hand. Next, let's go in and add some nuances. If you're studying it from the Alfred, there are some very helpful dynamics. I start forte, piano at measure 4, and then back to mezzo forte. But we're going to add in some more nuances. That's more the macro level overall. So I'm going to actually sneak in a little softer mezzo piano since this is the lowest part of my scale, and then crescendo up to that fortissimo. So I'm at mezzo piano, a little goal here, fortissimo, and I add a little touch of pedal to give it that resonance. Subito, suddenly soft, shape it. Hairpin shapings, crescendos, decrescendos on that sequence, and then the third sequence at measure 8 would be the loudest. Measure 9, I'm going to keep it pretty rich to start. Decrease. A little echo effect. Crescendoing. So follow the direction of the line as it goes lower, softer as it goes higher, getting louder. And a little stylistic effect, this is a dance. Think the dancers might bow to one another at the end. A little polka retardando would still be appropriate for this piece. So in summary, hopefully you've enjoyed learning through Beethoven's German dance. Some things to point out is practicing the right hand by itself to get proper technique, which is critical to play with articulations, to give you the arm support to play with dynamic shaping. Remember, this is Beethoven, and he loves drama in terms of dynamic contrast and subtle shaping. So go for those fortissimos and contrast it with the piano. So you might have to take a little bit of time to get that to come out. Using your wrist circles to shape those sequences. Add phrase variety. Get that right hand to be voiced down over the left hand, so that silent play will make that possible. So have fun learning this Beethoven. You'll be ready for a sonata in time. Thank you.